I run a bespoke software agency for a decade, and fixing WordPress disaster is 1/4 of what I do. Today I'll show you when WordPress is great, because sometimes it is great, and when it's garbage. Skip this and you will be stuck in plugin hell forever. Number one, why is WordPress terrible? WordPress is very bloated, and every plugin adds a risk of performance and bugs and security issues. And especially when you need to update them later, then weird things will start happening. Some plugins can be updated, others can't. Some depend on something, some depend on something else. So you really have to be careful when you're upgrading here. The admin panel also looks like someone just decided to click every possible setting and see what would happen. It's very, very bloated as well. And security is a big one as well, because WordPress is super popular, and combine that with bugs, plugins, and in the framework itself, this means that it's an ideal target for hackers and bot makers. And if you want custom logic, you'll be mixing PHP and WordPress in a very, very interesting sausage, and it is usually not so tasty. Number two, why do WordPress still win a lot of the times? The first thing is that it's very fast to launch. You can have a website up in a day or 3 days, and it will have a lot of functionality. You can reuse templates and themes and plugins. It's very, very nice this way. And this is one thing a lot of software consultants are not really thinking about. Also, a lot of Silicon Valley crowd, they don't really think about this here, because for them, they seem to have an infinite amount of money to be able to use on new fancy frameworks that takes a lot longer to actually build something with. The second thing is that the CMS system, though it is very ugly, is very simple, and it can do a lot of powerful things. And it is hard-coded into the system, so every plugin is very easy to integrate with this. And the third thing is you can find developers for $10, even $5 per hour, which means that you can get started really cheaply and, as I mentioned before, very fast. This is super important when you're bootstrapping something. One client of mine bootstrapped his business originally with WordPress, and he was able to actually make his business because of WordPress. He hired cheap developers, he got it up and running, he started capturing leads, and he wouldn't have been able to do that using Vue.js, React, or Angular, or some other fancy framework, because it just cost too much money and too much development. But as his company grew, he faced a lot of problems because things got quite messy. He was trying to fit WordPress into something that was much more than a standard CMS system. And plugins and all these things helped, but it was unfortunately not really good for him. And that's why he contacted me. The main thing was that pages were loading very slow, losing him conversions, and also a lot of features conflicted, and it was very hard to manage multiple people on the WordPress platform. So he started having more managerial people, and he had to explain a lot of like, hey, don't touch this one here because you will break something. So he didn't like that, and he said, okay, it's time to upgrade. We migrated his website to a custom website built in Django. This was tailored for his needs, and so all of these issues that he had before was not longer a problem. He had to pay a little bit more for this than doing it in WordPress, but he was able to scale and move beyond WordPress in this case. Number three, let's make a visual comparison of WordPress versus a custom solution here. With WordPress, we get fast to launch and we get it relatively cheaply. Performance is also a lot slower in WordPress, but that is usually not a problem for most people. You know, most people maybe want a Ferrari, but they would probably be better with a Toyota. Security and flexibility are, though, probably what you're gonna hit before performance. And security, the main thing here is to try to keep your plugins as limited as possible. Don't install plugins unless you really need to, and try to keep the plugins in a good state, like upgrading them, and make sure that you have good plugins. There's a lot of plugins that are just made by junior developers that are earning a buck on that, and these are not so good to build your whole business around. For flexibility, you can build things in PHP around the WordPress framework, but it is not that great. It's really bulked together, and you easily end up hitting some limits, or you're making Frankenstein's monster. So you have to be careful, and you have to be okay with keeping your business more simple maybe, and just use human resources instead to maybe do some things. And then when you're ready to move to the next step, then you can do it in one swoop. The overall idea here is that I really think WordPress is underrated still for when you're starting out, just getting something out of the door without spending a lot of money, because you want to get something out of the door to test it, to see how it is, and WordPress is great for that. Blogs, great for that. You just throw it out there, and it's very cheap to run, very cheap to maintain, except that you might have some security bugs or performance bugs later. But this is worth it if you ask me, because you actually end up doing something and getting something out there before you start spending a lot of bucks on it. If I was starting out and I didn't have any technical knowledge, I would just start with WordPress, hire some cheap developers on Fiverr and slap something together and get it out there and start testing it. This is one of the best things you can do. And as my client, he ended up with a very successful business, but he had to start with something that was subpar for him. It didn't fit his business because the way the CMS system is built, it's just not for developments and properties. But once he got it out there and he started working with it, he got some money and he could hire developers, or us in this case, to do something else. And all of that money you save, you can spend on marketing instead and get some customer feedback before you start doing a big investment. This way you will maybe even be able to earn a lot of money before you even have to do this. Or maybe you never have to. This is, some businesses are very simple and they don't need things more than a WordPress site. When you start really questioning if WordPress is the right tool, you can contact an expert like me and we can talk about if it is still the right tool for you. That's it. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.